che mo fa sera.
And we are live, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, welcome to Talking in Stations. I am Matterall. This is the Christmas show, and so we're here in our best Christmas attire to help end the year with on a happy note. And for those that don't follow Christmas, this is the holiday party. But yeah, so we're here. We're gonna have a casual show. We're gonna sit back and talk some Eve, talk some Talking in Stations for the last year, and basically invite the audience to come in and say hi. And a lot of the patrons will come by, and some former guests throughout the year, and we'll see how it goes. See what kind of train wreck we can get into. Oof, that's actually bad timing for that. That's too soon, right? Because nobody lives in Washington. So, welcome. Let's actually, we're going to not have introductions past this first part, but the first person I would like to point to is joining us for the first time in voice is McLeod, who is actually the producer, pushes all the buttons, gets us started on time. You can hear him in the pre-show setting things up. Essential member of Talking in Stations, and doesn't often get put up in front, but we're doing that this time around to thank him for all his work throughout the year. So, McLeod, welcome.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
Who are you?
But you don't know
where you're from. Tell us where. I know.
After all this time, he sits you in the
after all this-
control room, tells you to shut up, and never asks you questions.
So this guy has some serious authority. I best just shut up and do what he says.
Tell us where you're from in the game and stuff.
So I've been playing for a fair long period of time, actually, like probably about 10 years, maybe somewhere like that. I don't know. I've been pretty much in all corners of the political kind of sphere of Eve. I've been on the, I've been on the Gurgoon side. I've been on the Goon side. I've been on the I don't want to be a part of this, so we're just going to be a third party sort of thing, kind of thing. I've done a little bit of mining. I've done all sorts of stuff, but essentially, I used to be in Northern Coalition. Then I was not Northern Coalition as in like Matterall's Northern Coalition, but the old school Northern Coalition. And then I was part of Brick Squad, and then I was part of Red Alliance. So I've been here, there, and everywhere, and I've sort of found my feet with a really awesome bunch of people from the Graduates. They're a very long-standing corporation. Yeah, they're a really good bunch of people, man. They're a really, really solid bunch of people. They're, it's not one of those groups that is completely crazy and have ridiculously insane characters and stuff, but they have they're really good people. They're the people who when you want to actually have a chilled out kind of when you want to have a good chilled out kind of Eve experience, and you need either some guidance, some information, some tutoring, or just general kind of knowledge about the game. They're really, really good at that. And right. Recently, we're now part of the initiative.
Why we keep them in back.
yeah, I can just waffle on about bullshit.
No, listen, we'll come back to this, but before we get too far into it, I want to bring in Carneros. Hello, Carneros.
Good morning. Happy holidays. Happy holidays.
Love that. And Tiberius is with us.
Hey, Merry Christmas to all those celebrating Christmas. Your alter ego from England.
I stepped all over you, man. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So bad.
I think I might have to go and get my Christmas jumper, seeing how Christmassy everybody's looking at the moment. Especially Carneros in his fetching hat. Look at that.
Yeah, right?
Thank you. It's half Christmas, half Hanukkah.
Rebel in blue. We have a load of guests, and we're going to have people and invite people to come by. We'll drop them into on air, and they can say hi in a few words, and we'll rotate people in and out and stuff. So before we get too far into it, I want to introduce the initial guests that are here. And that would be, well, these are not guests. These guys are regulars and stuff like that. So we'll start with Noisy Gamer.
Hello, everybody.
We have Jeronica from Eve Mogul.
Hey, guys.
Dunk Dinkle from Brave.
Hello, all.
And Barghost Isu, I believe from Providence.
Used to be Providence, but we moved into Legacy. And hello all.
Oh, you're in Legacy. That's interesting. We'll cover that. Okay, back to McLeod.
Oh, no, you don't want that.
Yeah. So, as you were saying, by the way, you're going to have a test today because as people come in with their voices, some are quiet and some are loud, so you'll need to moderate that, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of micromanaging. Never hurt anybody.
No. You're right. And I didn't mean it that way. I meant I'll need to do the same thing. I think I was talking out loud. But finish your introduction.
Oh no, I was just saying that the Graduates as a corp kind of has bounced around a couple of times. We've even made our own alliance. We were probably one of the few people who ended up creating an alliance and becoming a part of Imperium as a brand new alliance straight away.
That's really hard.
It's one of the few things. Yeah. But I mean, as much as that project was doing really, really well, the environment at which it was born into was not doing too well, because that was the time when we were basically ceding a bunch of territory in the south, and eventually we had to kind of break that away and merge into another alliance. And so we merged into what was then I can't remember the alliance name because I'm that bad. I'm terrible. But we ended up basically finding a new home with some really, really awesome people in Initiative. And they are epic.
About you guys, the Graduates, was Eve Uni was in a war. They were constantly getting war decked because everybody picks on the little guy, and it was the grads I think that were in Morsis Mihi at the time that came and wiped out a couple of capital ships for Eve Uni. It's like a big brother.
Well, the graduates way back when I started, I started Eve in 2009, joined Eve University right away, and we heard the stories about the Graduates because they're called the Graduates because they graduated from Eve University, and they were one of the corporations or alliances that we were told, if you're looking to go on, then that's one of the places you might want to look.
Well, they're a spin-off of eUni, are they not? That's what I always heard.
Yeah, essentially. What happened was basically the Graduates were forged out of a bunch of eUni lecturers that decided that they wanted to have a slice of the nullsec action, because eUni pretty much kind of said, like, considering what they do and the people who join eUni, like, it's not really that fair to throw them straight into nullsec straight away. They had to kind of get their feet wet with low sec, as it were, and get their feet wet with the the mechanics of the game and this, that, and the other before jumping into that kind of that level of the gameplay. So essentially there were a few eUni lecturers who basically said, well, let's just make a new corporation and go out in nullsec, and so they did.
Holy shit, Dunk Dinkle, do you speak Russian? See some Cyrillic going on there?
No, I know one word in Russian. That's kukuruza, and the rest of it I just use Google Translate.
Is it impolite to ask what it might be?
Kukuruza means corn. That's it.
Well, McLeod, let me finish welcoming you to the stage, as it were. You actually did the after show for us because you're such a calm and relaxed dude that it was like a natural fit to have a cool down show after Talking in Stations. We did a few of those. Kind of opened it up to everybody, saying if you just wanted to come in and talk, we'd run the show, and that was a way of letting people have connection and participation on air and stuff. And so you ran that. What was that like?
I quite liked that. I mean, when we kind of refactored the show a little bit, it was sort of like looking at it, and it was like, it's sort of superfluous. But like, you know, of the few that I did, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. All right, so the topics today are all over the place. We have a few, believe it or not, but one of the things I want to do is just give you guys a chance to talk about something that happened this year that maybe affiliated with TIS, maybe not. It doesn't really have to be. But one of your highlights and one of your lowlights this year. Go ahead, anyone.
Yeah, my lowlights were losing 2 Rorquals.
That's right. Wait,
man.
Dirk McGurk just showed up. Dirk, are you there?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yay! You're not on camera, but you're here. Good. You'll be popping in and out, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of like cooking. Like I've got like French onion soup that just started, and then I got like some other stuff that's going on. But like, yeah,
man.
Christmas food pre-prep day. You know, it's like
French onion soup. Oh, I haven't had that for years.
Well, anyway, back to Tiberius, who was just explaining how he lost 2. What were they? Rorquals.
Yeah. Like, I think that was single-handedly the biggest loss. I still feel the pain now, man. Still feel the pain.
Yeah, you got like, what was your reaction to it? What did you do afterwards?
I think I went AFK for about 2 weeks. I had a proper sulk about it as well, like for a while.
I had to chase you down. Like I was like, no, don't quit.
I was honestly thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, essentially, Inner Hell doing what Inner Hell does, had a wormhole open up next door, didn't get reported. Like, literally, as soon as somebody reported that somebody had appeared in local, they were in the system and they were on top of them and brought in 70 Proteuses. And when they knew the response fleet was like, literally, yeah, we ain't going to fight that. So, GG, friends, sorry. And that was the end of that. Yeah, it was when you see Inner Hell come through a wormhole anywhere in nullsec and you're in anything slightly shiny, it is a bit of a squeaky bum time moment.
Squeaky. I just got that. What who was it that killed you, by the way?
Inner Hell.
Who?
They're like Inner Hell. They're like a wormhole group, and they basically spend their entire time rage rolling wormholes and dropping out into nullsec and killing Rorquals. That is literally what they do, and they're very good at it.
They are, and they don't care which faction. They just care how many like fat PvE targets are sitting in the system, probably not paying enough attention.
Were those the Russians that were really active when the Rorqual changes were first made to buff them up so much?
I don't know about that, but they are, like, you go and look at Inner Hell's kill board, and it is literally Rorqual, super carrier, Rorqual, carrier, Rorqual.
70 Proteus, man. That's no joke for a wormhole corp.
Like local spiked up. I think that was just about the mass limit that a wormhole can take. I never really realized this until I sat down with a good friend of mine by the name of Vifika Hawk. He does a lot of stuff over at EVNT as well, and he's a big wormholer. And I sat with him and started talking some wormhole mechanics, because wormhole mechanics are all very weird and strange sort of part of the game to me that I know very little about. And he was essentially explaining that whenever these guys do fleets, wormholers do fleets, they are constantly in their head running the math on whether or not what they have will exceed a hole and how often they can jump back and forth through it. And just the extra level of calculation and strategy they need to put into their gameplay was just something else entirely.
Nice. All right, so just to be clear to everybody in the channel and out in the audience, this is not going to be a usual show. It's going to be super casual. I won't even be moderating much. And right now we're covering low points and high points in people's personal EVE experience.
But my high point this year so far has been was the 2 campaigns NC had in Syndicate fighting the Initiative, which was actually really good fun. Really
It was a
enjoyed
lot
those.
of it was a lot of fun, actually, to be completely honest. Like we had a lot of fun. It was really interesting trying to counter what you guys are bringing, and then like seeing what you guys brought to counter our new counter kind of thing. It was like it was a counter game constantly.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing was like the first time we went down Syndicate to take the moons, we didn't get too much of a resistance, and what we saw was a Snatch fleet, and so we just kind of defaulted to using capitals from then on. And when we went back up north to fight the Imperium, who had moved back into the Harkonnen, and the Harkonnen Mink Rider came a thing earlier again this year, which again was great because there was some great fights against Fortizars and stuff there as well. But when that finished, and Initiative was spending all their time, well, not all their time, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but there was a lot of posts going on, just basically going, we took your towers back, what you going to do about it? And Vince turning around going, well, you know what? I'll show you what we'll do about it. And we just went straight back down there and started taking them all again. But we used the same tactic. Like we're expecting like Snatch Fleet, and for those who don't know what Snatch Fleet is, it's essentially like a ball of command destroyers with micro jump drives. And the whole point of them is to ping in, grab something, pull it out, and then kill it. And that way you can kind of go up against a much larger fleet and just pick off stragglers and kill them. And it's very, very difficult to stop. So we were kind of expecting the same thing again. We were expecting Snatch Fleet, so we just brought in carriers and faxes and things like we used in the previous one. And then in comes the Ravens.
I love that Tiberius gave them their own name.
Blinky Ravens. That was amazing. That whole name.
Jumpy Ravens. That was it. And we're in there and go, oh, look, Ravens. Well, that's something we haven't seen for about 4 years. How cute. They kind of bounced around a lot. That's the command destroyers. They're locking things at 300 kilometers. Wait, what? They're locking.
Yeah.
They're shooting things at Why are they shooting things at 300 kilometers? And why are faxes melting to them? So we learned many lessons from that. One of them that the Galente fax isn't very good. And it generally tends to melt when you have 150 Ravens shooting cruise missiles at 300 kilometers at it.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw a Lith on field, we rubbed our hands in glee because we knew that we'd be able to take it down.
And then, of course, the legacy of that whole thing is that now PL use the Jumpy Raven, and NC now uses the Rock as the counter to it. Great, and it seems to be now a big thing. Like a lot of the fights I'm involved with now has some sort of variation on that sort of ship now.
The cycle of Eve life right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who else has got
I agree.
Guys.
Some special parts this year have been deployments. The Bastion deployed to Sacht and did a campaign in Iridia. Really enjoyed that. Also went with Space Violence to did a deployment to the sort of the Curse Catch border and had a wonderful time playing down there. It's still going on now, but it's not quite as exciting as it was earlier in the year. But there's been some fun stuff. There's also a little bit of a weird perversity to really having enjoyed the 4 or 5 days of bubble camping the ex-CO2 Keepstar for a little bit while it flopped to Goonswarm and then to Test Alliance. Not because that was a particularly fun experience, but it was just perversely fun to have Eve up all day at work on one of my things and having people reading the news about, did you see what happened? That guy backstabbed that alliance, blah, blah, blah. Yep, come here, look at this. And they
there is kind of a social thing.
And a bubble camping is stationed. It's going on now. That was just fun to that part.
I mean, there is kind of a social thing to that, right? I mean, it's not so much the camping as it is just sort of like the social aspect of sitting there with your mates
Right.
while you're doing this thing, even though it's, whatever.
It was totally not the Eve gameplay that was fun. It was the rest of it that was fun.
I think that extends as well. Like when you used to go through an entire region grinding towers or grinding structures, you'd spend all your time, and it was kind of relaxed. Those sort of fleets are always kind of a little bit more relaxed, and you're doing your thing, and you're trying to get them done as quickly as possible. But you might spend like 2 or 3 hours doing it. So the conversation just generally tends to flow.
For better or
always,
worse.
yeah, for better or for worse. It depends on the alliance, I guess. But at the end of the day, it's a bit of a bonding session with your alliance mates that maybe in ordinarily fleets you don't get to do.
Well, who else has got a high point, low point? Dirk, I'm sure you have many, but
Most of my shit's low point. I got to tell you. I bring that upon myself, but I mean, look, high points. Okay, so it's like I really enjoyed when Goons and the Imperium came up north, and we were having to do some kind of sovereignty warfare, up there, and that sort of thing. I don't really get into fleets that are just about, oh, let's go shoot some people, sort of a thing, right? I want there to feel like there's some consequence going on, going on with it. And when you're defending your own territory or legitimately attacking somebody else's territory, I've always found those to be sort of the high points that I have for kind of fleet actions in the game. Not to say that some of those fleets against Pravi and whatnot that were going on down there, during the anime war, whatever the hell that was, weren't fun, but just I prefer something to where it feels like one side or the other is going to end up See, I'm getting called for food cooking as soon as I start to speak.
Go and come back. It's okay.
Well, I mean, other high points, obviously, getting to meet players in real life, from all over, at various events, whether it was camping with the bros at Eve Northeast or obviously Vegas and things like that. Those are things that I really look forward to, because just with what we do every week, whether it be here or whether it be on Open Comms or whatever, where it's like this whole sort of kind of like social aspect that is attached to Eve, but not directly Eve play, right? It's always great to do those things. I mean, low points, whatever. Just go back and watch, various videos throughout the fucking year. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is I push things to a hairy edge sometimes, and sometimes it goes awry.
That's what happens when you push it to 11.
Well, that's my own fault. And if I have a New Year's resolution to make, it's going to be to dial that shit back a bit. That I think I don't need to do that. So
well, go stir your pot, then come back and
I gotta take the
stir this
out.
pot. All right.
But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, actually, I got to agree with a little bit of Dirk as well. Some of the meets and get-togethers have been on this year have been brilliant. FanFest this year was great. It was always really good to meet up with a bunch of people, and London as well has been amazing. And a lot of people that went to Vegas, which you went to as well, Matt. That's were really good events too.
We almost got you there this year.
You know what I'd love to know. One of the things that surprised me in terms of Eve meets this year is that Antarctica meet.
Yeah.
I'd have loved to have known what that was like. If anybody out there knows anybody who was there, get in touch and let us know what that was like, because I'm really interested.
Yeah, it's like one Yeti, and Yeti, where did Mogul go? Oh, he's gone. The inside joke there is his keep stars are called Yetis or something.
But will Jornica be back in a moment?
Yeah, he'll come and go. A lot of these guys will come and go. Here's Opus Magnum. I'm going to drag him in.
Opus.
Welcome, Opus.
Can I go now, Matterall? Because I have to do cooking as well.
Oh, Dunk, no. Yes, you can cook, but
I'll stay as long as I can. But the wife's calling me from the other room.
Oh, give me your highs and lows real quick. Good parts of the year, bad parts for you personally.
Well, I think the high point of the year, undeniably, is the idea that Brave has a keep star, which was pretty much an impossibility until all the chaos happened. And to be able to sit in the keep star probably is the high point of my year. So
I'm not sure I knew that.
Matterall, you're supposed to be on top of every single thing that's happening on Eve, and you're one of the most disconnected people to that goings on in the hottest part of Eve there is right now in the South.
That's what these
Getting
guys are
told.
for.
We keep him disconnected so he's neutral.
Yeah. This is why I'm unbiased, because I don't know anything.
Well, we have a lot of fun with your friends in NC down in Impasse and Catch, so you should join up one of these days. You can undock and come see what's happening for yourself.
Wow. Actually, I was kidding, because I'm actually, one of my alts is in your keep star.
Are you trying to sell all this stuff?
No, but I'm in there. I have a clone in there.
All right,
This is where he goes and tells his spy masters to try and hunt down which altar yours it is, kick it out.
And then, so just undock and let me know when, and I'll test out the Doomsday on you.
No, not a spy. It's an actual NC character. Oh no, maybe it's a NPC corp. But yeah, I have a guy in that keep star. Yeah. If I undock, I'll let you know so you can blast me.
I think the low times aren't really the low times, but there is a bit of discouragement when you are a Force Ox pilot and a Rorqual gets tackled or a Super gets tackled, and then you jump in and you do everything you can to save the person. Maybe they get out. Sometimes they don't get out, but you inevitably get just obliterated because no one is going to stay on grid with you against some of these overwhelming, Loki fleets or the wormhole people. So that's not fun. It's what the ships are built for, but you get a little frustrated that you're taking it in the shorts.
All right, go stir your pot too.
All right, well, let me just say the other outside of the game. Yeah. I do want to say I was able to this year go to both FanFest and eVegas, and I have to say that going to FanFest and eVegas exceeds kind of the in-game stuff we do. I mean, meeting people in real life and talking with them and drinking and having a good time just far exceeds anything else you can do in the game. And so there's probably a lot of people listening that kind of don't really go out and meet other people in the game, don't have local meetups. And I encourage you, if there's any way you can find your way to a local meetup, EVE-NT, EVE Amsterdam, FanFest, any of these things, it's well worth your time. Even if you're a shy person, you will have a fantastic time going to these things. So that was really the highlight of the year, was meeting everyone face to face and exchanging swag and all that kind of stuff. And I really think it makes the game so much better than just playing it in front of your computer.
And if you're ever lucky enough to meet Dunk in person, make sure he shows you the briefcase of friendship as well. You won't regret it.
Amen.
Bargast?
Yeah, no, like the meets are a whole different level. I'd have to echo that. FanFest when I went was great. The first time going anywhere. Sadly, I missed London, but that was certainly one of the high points this year. Second one would be Warped joining Legacy and moving into Catch. That goes back to what?
Legacy is full of awesome, and so he just wanted to be part of the awesome?
Pretty much. No, after CO2 fell, obviously, Brave and a couple others moved into Impasse, and Catch space freed up, so offers were put around. One of the alliances we worked with passed the offer up, and to what I know, we had a couple people vouch for us, and we got the offer. We just took it. We took the plunge, and we're having a lot more fun now.
Oh.
There's rough days. I mean, we are currently being camped in all our systems 24/7, but we still have fun doing it.
Well, let me. This question came up, and I love these questions because there's so much complexity to an answer for this question. And here's the question, and it came from Griffey, who's in the audience there. Not played EVE in 2 years. Worth coming back? Have at it. What do you guys think?
I think so.
I definitely think you should.
I mean, even if you're even as an alpha, at this particular moment in time, it's worth coming back because you've got a whole bunch of new skills and a whole bunch of new ships that you can fly and use, and
so
interact
come back
with.
even just in alpha form, without paying, without obligation, and check that out.
Yeah. Totally.
Check it out as an alpha. If you're cautious that what you do want to do isn't still like it used to be. It doesn't feel right. You don't enjoy it. Come back as an alpha, try it. If it doesn't, you haven't lost anything.
Nope.
If it feels right, subscribe.
And the fact that you've got so much more range and option of ships to fly now as an alpha, if you'd previously trained them before as an omega, it just makes it so much more worthwhile. Just jumping in, dipping your toe in, catching up with some old friends, making some old connections, and just seeing, what's new.
All right, but what's changed in the last 2 years? What's the reason for him to come back?
Oh, so much. So much.
All right, elaborate. What has changed in the last 2 years?
I'm actually going to the EVE Updates website to actually go through the list.
You're gonna do it right. You're not just.
We can do this live. Yeah. We can do this live.
But there's so much. There's so many changes, small and big.
Well, this is how we work, right? Like we ask a question, and it's not like, yeah, join. It's fun. It's Tiberius going and researching and seeing what's actually changed in the last 2 years. If I ask Noisy Gamer a question, it's not an answer that he gives me. He goes and researches. Like, this is why, and this is what it takes to find all the actual, facts behind stories or behind information and stuff like that. It takes guys like this that run and actually run down with evidence, that kind of stuff.
However, I can say right off the top of my head, POS code.
So it's worth coming back because the POS code, player-owned station code, is going away.
Put your teeth in, Matt.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, that's something that is so big. I didn't even have to go research. It's just like 2 years, POS code, getting rid of that, putting up the citadels and everything like that. It's just changed so much. Some for the good, some for the better, some for not so good. But it has changed a bunch.
So
skill trading.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we start, for those that are absolutely new and don't understand what POS code is, it's the old code that was used to build structures in the game. And for a long time, CCP has said, we'd love to do this or that feature, but we can't because the code is really bad and we can't really make any new stuff built on it. And that was the POS code. So they, in the last 4 years, have tried to get rid of as much of the old code, and that means the programming for the game, right? That kind of code, so that they could create new features and better features and untangle the mess that was made before. And that's called design debt. When you design yourself into a corner, you can't really build on it, iterate, or make better features. You basically have to scrap the code and start over. And that's been happening. And so getting rid of the POS code has allowed new structures and new features to be developed. And that's what we're talking about.
Yep. And as a result, we now have all the citadels, and soon those horrible POSes and anchoring all those modules will go bye-bye.
Someone was saying something about skill trading. I heard.
Yeah, skill trading. Like that, I can't actually believe that, but that was February 2016 that came out, skill trading, which has essentially entirely changed how people play this game almost. Like how skill trading is done and how people acquire skills.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the time, you can just buy them and inject the skills. If you have too many skills, you can extract them and sell them on for the money. If you don't have that, it's crazy.
Has it added more to the depth of the game than it's taken away?
It's added some interesting nuances, yeah.
It's sped up how quick you can get into the deeper parts of the game.
Does it feel like the same rich experience in having gotten there, or does that really matter?
I think it's taking away to some extent. I'm not saying it's more negative than positive, but you can look at a player's age and go, oh, well, he's been playing this game a long time. He probably has all these skills, and now you can see someone that's literally a 90-day character, and they could literally have their own Titan.
That's Opus Magnum from Eve Onion
and NC Dot. Hello, guys.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Member of
I mean, it's for me personally. It took out. For a couple of my characters that I was training after this, it took out the pain points of some of those awful skills, which you just spend forever like training, and also it gives me now an ability to sort of look at my characters and go, I didn't quite like the way I took this character, so you know what? I'm going to take those out, strip it out, and then re-inject them and put them in a new direction. And you just didn't have that before.
I've never understood the desire to remove skill points from you because you didn't like the way that they were applied. Because, if you play this game long enough, you wait around, sooner or later, those skill points are going to be valuable and you're going to be missing them.
I think if you've been around that long, the skill points thing didn't make much of a difference to you. It's the beginners that affected a lot, or the new alts, but also in the mid-range, if the corporation or the alliance came up with a new doctrine and you don't happen to have what you need to do it, you could just buy a couple skill injectors and be there immediately on day one. And that's actually a good feeling. You can stay with your guys.
Yeah, you know what a bad feeling is injecting over and over and over again to get something like Advanced Weapon Upgrade 5. And you just see all that money going away.
Don't do it if you have a lot of skill points and you're not getting any value out of it. Don't do it, bro.
You
so
guys,
you guys remember. Go ahead.
Sorry, go. I was just going to say, you guys remember the fact that one of the dudes from, I can't remember which one of the
Iron Bank.
Was it one of Iron Bank's?
It was Iron Bank, yeah.
It was actually Iron Bank, where he just skill injected every single.
We know it was Iron Bank.
Yeah, it was skill injected every single skill to 5.
Yeah, that
500
was the first day they were released.
Was it 500 and something million skill points, and the number of ejectors he needed went into sort of probably nearly the trillions of ISK to do. It was crazy.
It was.
I think he spent what, $2 trillion to do that almost.
Sounds about right.
Because that was day one.
Like the posts, yeah.
And I only ask the question because I myself wonder from time to time, did it remove some feeling of like accomplishment along the way, to where like you feel like you earned your time in, sort of a thing, as opposed to the offset of that, which is we've always had a tough time getting newer people into the game and ramped up and participating at a level that makes them want to stay. And therefore, that's a very big positive for the fact of there is the option for them to do that. I just wonder if the whole skill point, farming, extraction, injection thing was the right step, or if there was something else out there that could have achieved it in a way that didn't seem so kind of artificially fast.
Well, right after the skill injectors were introduced, I introduced about 4 new people to the game, and I saw a negative side of it off the bat because these guys have played other games that, you can buy your way to a better car, ship, or whatever, and they basically skill injected themselves into stealth bombers day one, and got very frustrated after they didn't know how to actually use them, and so basically there's having these 30 million ships just getting blown up and blown up and blown up because they don't know how to use them, and they got frustrated with the game and left because I had told them that, hey, this takes time, but they didn't have that time in between that, time it would have taken them to get to the stealth bombers, originally, to actually learn how to fly the ships properly, learn how to use the overview scanner. And I saw that negatively that way, but also I think it's great for new players to get in and get to those, cruiser level ships faster, because if they can be used for bad or good. And that's also very personality driven based, I think. So if you have someone that comes in and just thinks, oh, I got an I win button, I can buy all the injectors and be good, I think they're going to have a very poor experience. And I think people that come in and actually have someone to guide them and use them for I think they're supposed to be used for, and to get them into something that there's equal footing maybe with the area they're in, so they can learn with that ship or be with their friends, I think they're going to have a great experience.
Yeah, and I just want to address obviously some of the listeners out there. A couple of them sort of said the same thing, but I'll go with H2 Pro. He said, "I never felt the waiting game produced a sense of accomplishment. I feel being able to fly in a fleet and winning an objective was the accomplishment I wanted, not waiting for SP." And I'm not necessarily talking about the long grind. Oh, look, I lived through the long grind of the training time and things like that, but more some of the decisions that go into how and what you're going to train over time. was somewhat removed by this. And one of the big things I've always seemed to feel about Eve is there's a plethora of decisions that you have to make, on your character, as well as everything else that over time led to some sort of kind of like the history of your character.
Yeah. Also, the opposite of that is. Elaine, welcome. You're one of our Patreons here. We appreciate your support.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. It's a story, Dirk.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, and just when you get into like, well, how am I going to, what am I going to train now? How am I going to have my attributes set up for the things that are important to me now? And they're seeing, what this did was it sort of kind of erased a lot of that. If you want to do the whole, kind of buy your way to instant gratification, right?
Well, the opposite of that is, and this is the reason that maybe Eve is played by older people, because they have more commitments, real life has started, whatever, those kinds of things. But the opposite of waiting for the grind is not being outground or having people who have a ton of time grind way past you and leave you behind. There's a different upper class in EVE Online. It's the upper class of who joined first, who joined early. They have the advantage of having skilled up more stuff, which isn't the end all in EVE, but it does help. Instead of having somebody who hires other people to grind characters or grinds characters themselves because he's got time to do it. So you don't feel like you're being outperformed by people who have more time.
I always wonder about the psychological aspect when you enter a game. In MMORPGs, there's a reason that you hit levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 really fast, maybe even in your first play session, is that you get that feeling of accomplishment. You get that the little ding noise that comes as you level.
Yeah.
It's a psychological thing that gets you hooked into the game. And so you can get a lot of those as your skills train. On your first or second play session and things. So I'm just wondering if we allow people to bypass that, if we're actually allowing them to bypass something that might help hook them into EVE.
Thanks, Commander A's, for that donation. Super appreciate it. I usually miss him. McLeod has to poke me and say, "Hey."
And then we get to the end of the show, and then McLeod's going, "You didn't say these things."
Speaking of that, Noisy Gamer, when I would actually, when I had a big skill and I had been waiting for it for 17 days or something, I would log in just to hear that accomplishment ding.
Well, you could have just gotten that through EveMon, right?
No, does it? Does it make the noise?
Yeah, it makes a noise and it wakes you up in the night if you're waiting for it. So yeah.
I mean, it doesn't do the skill training complete, but it definitely gives you an alert. And
well, I remember early on in the game when you had to actually wake up when you wanted to put a new skill in because it only had one skill at a time you could load.
Oh man.
Well, yeah,
I don't think anybody ever bitched about the extension of the skill queue.
No.
3 a.m. 3 a.m. wake ups to change a skill was a thing.
But that had a big effect on the game, didn't it?
Huge.
Yeah, and I don't mean in necessarily a positive way. There was also a negative way. Do you guys?
I don't know that there was necessarily a negative, to that, to being able to think out what you want your queue to be. Over a longer period of time. A lot of people were already doing that in EveMon and stuff like that, to where they were figuring out what to do. And then it just became, that the how do I get these into my queue in a sensible way to where I'm not waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but
and then losing, however many hours in between.
We heard, though, from CCP that the psychology of logging in all the time kind of was dialed back. And so the people logged in at a certain point went down. So, it had the effect of having people, right?
Yeah, I mean, I felt it. Once the 24-hour skill queue was advanced to 50 skills, however long that took, I found myself logging in less.
Yeah.
Well, there was that, because if you knew you had to log in to change your skills, right, then there was the opportunity for you to go, well, I'm logged in, let me go do something, right? But if you know you don't have to, then there's that decision of, well, I'm maybe not going to.
Yeah, or at
so
least,
I hear you on that.
At least check the markets or communicate with somebody or to say hi to your corp mates. It didn't have to be a, let me get out there and fight something. It was just like, you're in the game, you're present in the game. You say hello to people. You populate the place, even if you're not doing anything. You're somebody else in a station, and so it had a diminishing effect if people didn't have to log in to check their skills all the time. But it did, for people who are playing long term, give them a chance to reduce the freneticism of constantly being in touch with Eve.
Threx brings up something else. He said, do you think alpha skills should be injectable, but omega skills shouldn't? I can see a difference between injecting to an interceptor and injecting into a carrier for a new pilot. I mean, look, the diminishing returns that come at the higher skill point levels, ends up being kind of the thing that's meant to maybe have you not do that. But quite honestly, with the way money is in the game and everything, I don't know that it's really that much of an obstacle. So I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting point. If really what you're looking to do, which I think it was made for newer, younger players, but they were also allowing older players to take advantage of it. Maybe it always should have just been, we want to get newer players ramped up faster. And the rest of you, guess what? You've already earned your years in the game advantage.
It probably would have prevented, to some degree, the immense amount of Rorqual alts that were built. People,
without a doubt, it absolutely helped propagate that.
I know people who literally basically extracted all of the skills that they had on their alts for PvEing and carriers and put them straight into Rorquals.
Do you know how few people had Rorqual alts that were maxed out? Like, I did have one, actually, but every corporation would have one, maybe two, because you only needed one in the corp to boost, the mining missions that were being done.
Yeah, it was gold dust.
Yeah. So it would have been a little more exclusive to people who had done the sacrifice before, but that would have been an interesting thing. You wouldn't have seen so many Rorqual alts because people were borrowing money. I've heard this from Roden on a show. They would borrow money to invest in the injection process, which might have been 80 I don't know how much it was. Let's say
basically to build their entire thing, from the buying of the Rorqual to the injectors to skill up all the alts that they're going to run with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. Because they knew they could get that investment back, and they probably got it back and paid off their debt and went on to make a lot of money, which is interesting. There's that side of the gameplay, right? Make a big investment, you pay back your loan, and you've built up an infrastructure to make money in the game. But it would come at a sacrifice for everybody else who feels like, holy crap, these guys have made money printing machines by doing this process of having so many Rorqual alts.
Well, and that's and that's where it gets into the intersection of kind of some of the things that Caleb and I and others have discussed about scarcity out there and things. Right, we really don't have scarcity when it comes to the resources that we mine or the ISK that we can pump out of anomalies. Right, and if what you have is the ability to, well, I don't have to train up that new super carrier ratting alt, or I don't have to train up this new Rorqual alt. It just adds to the problem that what some of us see as a problem with the over farming of these things that runs to excess ISK and runs to excess resources that didn't necessarily used to exist at the level that it does now.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my corp mate Krull Glaive there. I guess that's he won't come on, but I want to get him on because that guy is like established. I think he owns like just about every Titan skin.
Established.
Established with a capital E. He was showing me this. It was better than Fireworks. He had his Titans out, an Avatar and a bus, an Erebus, and he was flipping through all the skins, and it looked like a fireworks show. It was pretty cool. Oh, I outed him out as having wealth. So Yeah, if you guys want to extort somebody, that's your guy.
He calls them the disco type.
It's poor skin rich.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he does. Yeah, look at that. He's subbing to this show when he's on Open Comms. Dirk.
Thanks,
Is that mutiny?
I never, whenever I see subs, I never know if that's just when like the resub happens or if that's when somebody's actually punching the sub again button or something.
No, he's punching the sub again because he also said 16 months. That's almost having 2 babies. So you know.
Is subbing a Twitch feature or?
Something's a Twitch feature, yeah.
Because I'm a Patreon.
You're different.
That's all good. It's all good.
Actually, Dirk and I had this out the other day. We talked about the difference between Patreon for this show, Talking in Stations, the difference between the relationship between Talking in Stations and INN. And that was kind of interesting in that the Patreon is a runaround from money going to INN, is what it looks like. But what it is because INN is not really about the money. They just need to pay their servers and that sort of stuff. They haven't really said that's not okay kind of thing. If they had, then you'd have to look at that and say, well, what am I in this for? But the point is the Patreon was built to help the podcast portion of it, and the subscriptions and the tips and stuff that you give while we record the podcast inside of INN, that goes partly to the station and partly to the show, the video podcast and stuff like that. The video, what is it? Video on demand? I guess it's a new thing, VOD.
So when you donate ISK, where does that go?
That goes into my pocket. And I have it. I have the ISK that's been donated to me. It's been invested so that it grows because I didn't want to just have ISK sitting there. So I made a bunch of investments. And it's actually funny because I was doing some broadcasting and I left my inventory window open. There was billions worth of minerals and stuff like that, and people were like, "Hey, what are you going to do with all that money?" But what it's doing is accumulating more wealth, and I'll eventually sell it back into the market, and that way the money is actually working instead of just sitting there dead. You could do that with Plex too, I suppose. But all that money is going to be used. We've kicked around ideas, right, Dirk? Like how to use it.
I don't know. Have you kicked around those ideas?
You and I kicked around ideas.
It's kind of like even on Open Comms or whatever, right? It's like the wallet doesn't end up going to me. I mean, Drayden has that or whatever, and I think we talked about using some of it to buy drinks out in Vegas or whatever. And I think that he withdrew a bunch of money.
Minutes.
Well, I think he withdrew a bunch of money out of the thing, and then we never used it. We were just buying and never thought to use the pile of money that he had brought with him.
Didn't he take a few? I don't know. We'll call them escorts to Denny's or something.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's not where it went. But, whatever.
Is that where it goes?
That would be pure Open Comms if he did use it for hookers and blow.
Hello, Hell 885 from Brave. God. So anyway, the funding, and here's the thing, and I've thought about this, and maybe we'll make a change in the new year, but the Patreon pays for I set up a Patreon to say I need to be reimbursed because I accidentally spent $500 on server fees to get the podcast out, and I can explain why that happened too. It was a simple mistake of realizing that a 2-hour show takes a lot of bandwidth if you do it 4 times a week, and you get thousands of downloads, it turns out. And I was on AWS, which ran up my bill considerably because I was doing the Eve News EN24 podcast before, right, Tiberius?
Yep.
But that would only be, how long was that show? Like 30 minutes to an hour at the most.
Yep, that's it. 30 minutes to an hour once a week, maybe every other week.
Yeah.
So every other week, I think it was. Yeah.
So I was not paying much, so I figured I didn't even think about it. I just kept hosting on AWS, ran up a huge bill, reached out through Patreon, said, "Hey, can you guys help reimburse me? Because I'm willing to do this for free, but I'm not willing to go in that much debt because Wi-Fi grow and all that." So that's how that started. Now I have definitely recouped that money, and then I put out a message saying that I've recouped it. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and continue to collect money, and then we'll just use that to upgrade equipment and stuff like that, which we have done. We've done a round of upgrades. We have a mic. I have a new microphone and what's this Tascam thing. I would not have had it if I wasn't doing this show. So I imagine that's a good expense. I bought software, paid for server fees, and so the money is coming out of that fund. There is still more money there, and what I'm going to do is take some of my older equipment and hand it off to other people so they can upgrade their stuff. So yes, I'm building a multi-dollar empire, media empire, girl. That's what's happening here.
It all has to begin somewhere.
$1 at a time. But this brings me to a point of wanting to really thank people who support the show because it's really I would probably, we would do the show anyway. It's not, but it does help in that if there is some kind of adjustment we need to make, whatever it is, we can make the adjustment without going out of pocket, and that helps a lot. So thank you, Patreons like Elaine here. I appreciate.
I mean, that is the thing, though, right? Is we would do it anyway.
Yeah, I'm not doing this.
Which is what makes it hard. I mean, which is what makes it hard to sit there and be like, hey, remember you can support it. Like doing those little things that a lot of streamers out there do because they're doing it for a combination of reasons, right? I mean, we are doing this. I know I started at a time when the idea of asking for anything it wasn't even there. We were just doing it because we would have done it anyways.
Yeah, I mean, some FCs and CEOs ask for or get computers donated to them, and you can look at that and say like, wow, that guy's just crowdsourcing his members. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is saying that guy's putting in a ton of time for you, the members of your corporation or alliance, and you guys are showing appreciation, but you're also allowing him to do it better or easier or, not incur a bunch of costs to do it. I think there's some legitimacy to that. What do you guys think?
I've always found that the people that are willing, I don't want to call them content creators because they're not necessarily but in a way, for you, the line pilot, in a way they are. They're taking you someplace that maybe you wouldn't have gone otherwise were it not for some of those few people that tend to lead these things. I've always found that supporting them in some way, other than a big fat thank you at the end, thanks FC at the end, is good not only for you as a line member, but good for your corporation or alliance or whatever organizational structure you're in. Because we know that, a few people lead so much of the activity that goes on in each.
And certainly when you look at some of the larger groups in EVE as well, when you suddenly start looking at all the infrastructure that they have in place, like the TeamSpeaks or the Mumbles and the websites and the forums and all the bandwidth they do and everything else, and suddenly the costs of those get ridiculously huge.
And those people are changing at the moment too, because we know the API system is going away. So the IT teams are all working behind the scenes to build replacement for when the API system goes down in the next couple months. So the IT teams that are building all that infrastructure are working their butts off.
Like so many man hours put into just putting all this stuff together. And I know I've seen some Alliance server costs being well in excess of £1,000 or £1,500, £1,000 or £1,500 a year just to keep it running. So, maybe 400 or 500 nerds can get together every so often and go and shoot people in internet spaceships.
I mean, it puts into perspective that actually the joke that goes around on Reddit that some of our groups are more organized than real-life businesses, that's actually kind of true.
That's Bargust Isu. And I just got a subscriber. Thank you very much. Sorry, on Patreon. And that was Dunk Dinkle, who reminded me to close the deal. So if you want to donate to the podcast, it's patreon.com/Matterall. Yay. Full circle.
I can tell you're not in sales, Matterall.
I did put the link up for you, man.
No.
Ramalcos out there says someone important pointed out FCs may not be the content creators much as the people who build the things we shoot. Look,
yeah. Actually, that came up. That came from somewhere else.
Came from Aerith, I think.
No, it was a nominate. It was a nominate. But go ahead.
But look, Eve is a symbiotic game. in order to have destruction, you had to have creation first, right? In order to have a battle over a structure, you had to have the structure there in the first place. And that is true. It is true, which is why, like, all this stuff, all the hate on miners back in the years, or any of these things, right, that actually kind of source materials and things like that let us build ships, that let us blow ships up, and structures and everything else. Without that symbiotic relationship, Eve is just a dead arcade game.
Yeah, I mean, like for the Imperium, GSOL may be the ultimate in content creation, because if they're not moving stuff around and setting stuff up and everything, then nothing's going to happen really.
At the end of the day, it always boils down.
We're getting a bunch of subscriptions and donations. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Love that vote of confidence.
There you go. That's the Christmas spirit for you, right there.
Exactly.
That's why I wore the sweater.
Milk it for 24 hours because it dies for a year.
But it's like, and at the end of the day, even all these people that like lead the fleets or do the logistics or set up the IT services, things like that, all it takes is one nerd to like say to another nerd something they don't like, and suddenly you have a war on your hands.
It's come down to winking on what, Reddit? Don't wink at me, I'll come after you.
Hey, we went down to NC went down to Syndicate for the second time in the year, just to because of what initiative members were posting on Reddit, so
yeah,
it works.
Carneros, you've been quiet for a little while. What's going on with you this year, or what happened this year?
Well, actually, one thing earlier that we talked about was the local meetups, and I wanted to say a couple things about that. If you may not have a convenient local meetup in your area, it may seem intimidating to you to set one up, to go find a local restaurant that's willing to give you a back area and let you maybe put up a sign each time you come and do something. We have a wonderful place in San Diego, California, in a barbecue restaurant that has beers and burgers, and we have a great time. But something a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to do, and also Matterall's favorite subject, the Alliance Tournament. You could do an Alliance Tournament viewing party, and it's a one-time thing. You can find a local bar that will host, or you can host at home if you can maybe broadcast Twitch over onto your TV and have it a little bit bigger and serve some beverages. It's in my particular time zone, it's 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning that I have to turn it on to go watch the beginning. So I find that the gay bars are a little bit easier to talk into getting a bartender in at 7 in the morning for you than the straight bars are. Your mileage may vary.
Turning Eve gay one player at a time.
No, I'm being practical here, folks. That's what I do.
Practicality, guys, damn it. To be fair.
New meaning to X up is gay.
I vouch for that. I lived in West Hollywood for 4 years.
Yeah, if you need someone to open their bar, what I did is I basically said, I want to have a few guys in. I'm willing to pay a little bit of money to guarantee the bartender, whatever. I think I paid $300 or $400, and they said sure, and they put out a spread of food for us, and they put out, they gave us free coffees and stuff too, and then they also just opened the bar and served us whatever we want, and we had a great time. And they put Twitch up on their, instead of gay videos, they put Twitch up on it was perfect.
I know for Denver, we don't pay nearly that much for our Alliance Tournament meetup. We get a big screen.
Tim's just died in the background.
We're calling this episode the gay bar episode.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm serious. Like a hot tub, bunch of guys talking about Eve. What do you think?
Fair enough.
Sounds very Cali, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all up for it, but if we touch, it's going to get a bit awkward, yeah.
Jingle bells, guys, jingle bells.
But I am thinking of having actually, Dunk and I were talking about this, right, Dunk?
Yeah, I'd like to, in my copious spare time when I'm not hauling you around, I would like to do a real Eve LA, not a bar get together, but have some presentations and get people together a little more formally.
Yeah. What do you have in mind, by the way? Like, what you gonna have a dinner kind of thing, or?
What I looked at is kind of renting a meeting space, which is the thing I'm struggling with now, is getting a space where we could have like a projector and then get various people. There's a ton of people in LA, and there's even people in Northern California who'd be willing to come down and just do some short presentations, because it's always interesting to hear what the people who don't make presentations often have to say. And I think people would learn a lot, and I think that's how some of these other things got started. That's how eVegas got started, EVNT got started, EVE Amsterdam got started. It's just a little more formal than we're going to go drink beers and bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I've even been in London. I've even in London been to, some of the Alliance tournament viewing parties and stuff like that. It's been really good.
I would drive up. I would drive up. Oh, hell
awesome. Yeah. That sounds good.
And don't forget, it doesn't have to be like some really complicated thing. The longest running player Eve meet is the London meet, and it essentially is just a bunch of guys getting together and having a chat in the pub. That's it. It helps the beer's cheap. And we have a little sign, and we go and we put the sign up, and that's it. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, no, I know. We already, the thing is, here in LA, we already have that. And then it inevitably wanders around, like the outspoken people are outspoken and the introverted people stop showing up. So what I want to do is bring new people in that have now a reason besides let's go drink beer in this place, like a more formal situation. And that will bring people in, they'll make friends, and then it'll hopefully bring people who don't normally say I want to go on Saturday night and drink beer with these guys, and get them into the wider EVE community in Southern California. So that's how I want to differentiate it, because we already have the bar meets, and some people show up, but a lot of people are nervous to, they're underage or whatever it is.
I was just going to say, Dunk, even before you said that people out there shouldn't think that just because they're having it at a bar means everybody's getting wasted. I think that when you have these kind of 3 or 4 hour local meetups at a bar, that it doesn't turn into eVegas, or you shouldn't have to worry that it does that. But I think that you are right that there are people that perhaps avoid those things because maybe they don't drink, maybe they can't because they're underage or whatever, that tend to avoid those. So having something else where it's more like a dinner situation, or where it's not just at a bar, could be a draw as well.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And there's probably one consistency I'd always say about meets that I've been to for EVE, is that EVE players are just like the most welcoming bunch ever. Like, even if you sit there and you go, "Oh, you're the guys that I shot at you last weekend. Oh, you shot at me, and hey, not good to meet you."
Oh, stop.
And that's it. And that's literally it. Like, EVE players is great.
You don't have to be in a big fancy alliance that everyone's heard of. You don't have to be a 2007 character or bullshit like that. You could be a brand new player. You could be someone who hasn't logged in a few months, but you're following the metagame. It all works.
Yep. All right. Let's stop flattering all the EVE players. There's some bad ones out there, not welcoming, but the guys that show up at these things all have something to talk about. So you always have an entry point into a conversation. And I think that's the key. Like, you can look at somebody from across the room, walk over to them, and just say, "Who do you fly with?" And you're accepted, because that's an acceptable question, because you all have that in common. And I actually love this idea, Dunk, because I don't want to drink. Sorry, I don't want to drink. It's not like, I don't know why there's this thing of like the only legitimate social situation with EVE players is to get really drunk. Like, that's not even something I'm interested in.
For our Denver meetup, we have one about once every 4 or 6 weeks, and we usually go to a restaurant instead. I don't drink.
I think it depends on I think it depends on the situation. Again, if you're having a short 3 or 4 hour kind of meet, chances are
defend the drinkers.
Well, chances are that's probably not happening. Look, if you've got a long established one that now, 50, 60 people are showing up to, maybe it happens more there. I don't know. I mean, the one I went to in Boston, really wasn't like that. Some people stayed later, and it went on later into the night. But, I don't think that just the sitting around sipping a beer is where, people are getting wasted at those kind of, just few hour event.
Well, Aramis Rosacrux, I guess, or Crux, brings up the point that it is an Icelandic game, and so maybe that's where the origins of mead and drinking and
I think it's more social lubrication.
Social lubrication.
Well, I mean, I think it does, occur like that. But again, I'm just not sure that there's all that. I mean, and you probably shouldn't go by what you see on Twitter or whatever other way that somebody's like showing pictures of them doing that, because that may be just a small piece of what's going on in a larger thing there.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say is that it is hard to get these things kind of kicked off, but once you reach a critical mass and other people say, well, there's other people going, I'll go, kind of a thing. I think you do have some people out there that won't show up to something necessarily the first year or the first time you have it because they don't know anybody. They're not even sure it's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
I agree. But I mean, this is probably one of the biggest lessons I've always learned. It's like when you do meet Eve players, and so I'm sorry, I'm going to say how Eve players are so great in social situations again. Sorry, I'm doing it. But I have never seen, I've gone to Eve meets, a lot of Eve meets, and I've never seen such a wide diversity of people from different backgrounds and different styles, where they drink or they don't drink or whatever. Even at a pub meet, people will go and, they may not drink, they just go there, have a bit of food and then go home or whatever. But everybody is always welcome, because you always have that, who do you fly with? Or here is my Eve story, or here is your Eve story, whatever it may be. And it's brilliant.
Yeah. Well,
and it's all worry about revealing who you are in RL. You don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. And I would like to also point out that even in Eve meets, it's always really good fun to talk about Eve face to face with people as well, but also to play Danger Game with people as well, because that's fun.
Danger Game.
The thing is, the one of the things I thought was interesting, and this is what I put in my feedback to eVegas, because they put a little post questionnaire about how you liked it.
Oh, here comes the Matterall's ruining eVegas thing.
Yes. This is how I plan to undermine it. I wrote, because I guess I'll go back to my experience with it. My son is playing an NBA game behind me, so that's what that awful noise is. But I look at people like Noisy Gamer and the Ancient Gamer Noob, and these guys, they treat eVegas like an actual convention. They're there with a notebook, they're on time, they sit there, they get good seats, they write notes. They're there to treat it as a convention, and that is so cool. That's the part of FanFest or eVegas that I would want to engage in.
Absolutely. Well, and those play to that. I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about player meetups and eVegas specifically, and they're like, they don't drink and they don't necessarily want to. I said, look, you got to understand, these things are so big that just because you see a lot of pictures of the bar or a lot of talk of the partying that goes on, there are 500 other people doing other things that aren't that. I mean, when you look at how many people went to eVegas versus, yes, the bar was packed every night. Okay. And yes, during the daytime, there were some people down there, having a beer or two. But then there were other groups off having lunch. There were other groups off having dinner. There were other groups off, meeting up for, I don't know, a game of Magic in the hotel room. I mean, whatever.
Yes.
I mean, when you have that many people, you're going to have a diversity of things being
Wasn't there a party where they wore onesies?
That was last year at Vegas because it was during Halloween.
Yeah,
didn't MC 1 year when they won that suite played some role play game in the suite all night long or something?
Honestly, the sound of that onesie party just sounds to me from the UK like a typical Friday or Saturday night in a university bar.
Well, when they said it's a onesie party, I imagined big baby outfits.
Nah.
But it turns out they're furries.
Yeah, it was more the furry scene.
Yeah, it was like the furry scene. I thought, do I want to go to furry scene? Hell yeah, I do, but I don't have a costume.
I mean, just
It's just your revelation from that there.
when you get into the things like FanFest and Eve Vegas or Amsterdam or Eve Down Under, because of the size of them, you're just going to have more diversity among the players that are there, and they're not all doing that. When it's kind of like when you listen to people talk about Eve, right? There's an incredible amount of talking about nullsec, because it seems that the people who are involved in nullsec are perhaps more likely to be involved with writing or doing shows or things like that, and to the point where you would almost think that, well, nullsec is the entire game, when it's not. We know that there are other people out there doing other things. We just don't necessarily have their stories. Well, we just don't necessarily have the stories of what else is going on at these things that from the diverse crowd of players that come to them.
Yeah, it's as somebody that's not from nullsec, it's very unusual going to some of the meets. I mean, it's like for people that are from Wormholes, it's like they gather together and they're in their little groups and stuff. And I've gotten invited to a couple of their after parties or during parties.
Well, look, the
like
wormhole people, it's all basically covered for the secret sex parties. So let's just be clear about that.
But yeah,
truth.
Yeah, it's like when I was first going to FanFest and I didn't really have any stories to tell. I wasn't involved with anybody. I just said, well, I have mine in LowSec. And once I said that, it was like, oh my gosh, tell me stories.
Yeah. Noisy, you're an unusual player to begin with, but when you go to these things, I just cited you as somebody who's an inspiration to me on many levels, but when you're at a convention, you're actually doing the convention thing, sitting there taking notes and that kind of stuff. Like what's that about? I mean, you seem very studious about it. You remind me like you're in college again, which is great. I love that feeling.
Well, it's like, so if you're a writer, you're going to want to write stuff and publish things. And since I'm going to be there on the site, I'm going to write a blog post every day about it. And so that's what that's all about. And then as you're writing, you want to, have something that's, intelligent and that people are going to want to read about. And you might want to give some stuff behind the background and how you feel about things on the ground, even though people watching streams probably know more than I do. But that's what that's all about. It's like having the doing, I guess putting out content on my blog. That's what that's all about.
So who are the other guys that do it with you? There's two guys with you.
Okay, so we had Wilhelm, who's from TNT, and the Ancient Gaming Noob, and then the other guy that was with me was Dire Necessity, who writes for Crossing Zebras.
That was him, right? Oh,
yep.
That's who that was.
Yeah, he's the guy. I mean, I think I spent the most time with him, and then after that, it was the Ancient Gaming Noob, and then with Gabby / Emma, who runs a Wormhole Alliance, and then running into like Johnny Spunk and Minxie and a whole bunch of other people that I've met throughout the years. It's really unusual for somebody that's like kind of unaffiliated to know all these people.
Well, that guy Dire Necessity is a lovely guy. He's super nice, pleasant to be around.
So
like
Minxie.
Carneros. Yeah. Wait,
Minxie, if you're listening, come in and say hi.
Did you say NC?
Minxie.
Oh, yeah, Minxie.
Well, your ears out.
We want to do our post NDA show with Celine, Minxie, Carneros, and a few other employees / CSM members that are out of their obligations for their non-disclosure agreements. So we can get the dirt on 2009 Eve CCP. We'll get to that show either early in the year or maybe next show. We'll see. But yeah, so there's different ways to kind of enjoy Eve Vegas, I found. Like Dirk, you won't find him taking notes in the auditorium, right?
No, that's not true. I mean, I definitely go to certain things that I want to hear about, and because I want to hear what the sort of input is.
That's true,
and stuff like that, right? No, I'm not the guy that's sitting there with a laptop taking physical notes or whatever.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm selling you short. That's just somebody that parties super hard. Like that's definitely a part of it. But you're also there.
No, I spend my day. Well, I mean, this past Vegas was a little bit different. We were like chilling by the. Honestly, every Vegas for me has been different. My earlier Vegases were spent much more going to kind of the sessions and things like that. But then what I realized for me is that something like a Vegas is about talking with other players that, especially ones that I don't talk to normally. And sort of hanging out, spent a lot of days, up at the cabana by the pool. And it was amazing how many people, would just come by and, maybe they'd have a drink, maybe they wouldn't, but, they were just actually outside, which was a little bit different. But no, I mean, I think that, you go to some of these things and you listen to what's going on, especially if they're making an announcement or whatever. Other people may find a player presentation to be completely something in the niche that they're interested in. So they go to that. I think there's a good balance there, but it's not all about just Eve inside the game. It's not all about just socialization. It is kind of what you make of it in a way when you've got something that's a multi-day event like that.
All right, can I stir us back to Christmas for a second?
Oh yeah.
So I want everybody who's listening on the Twitchness put into comments what is your traditional that you're having for Christmas dinner, because everybody does something crazy. I saw someone on Twitter just is having fucking half a fish for Christmas dinner, which seems crazy.
Wait, what?
Was he a seal?
I don't know. So I want to see everything rolling in the Twitch stream of all the different foods people eat for Christmas dinner, because it always is interesting.
You're a natural for audience engagement. Why don't you have a show, Dunk?
Because I'm hauling Moonor all the time now.
Too busy, right?
But all you need to do to haul Moonor is drag, drop, undock, and warp to jump, warp to jump, warp to jump. Like you can do that.
There's all kinds of tricks, right? Hauling Moongoo, man, that can get you in trouble fast if you lose a big chunk of.
You can do a show while you're doing that, can't you?
Look at the fish head.
No, then I have to listen to my musics when I'm doing that. When I'm in my little what is it? What do I haul in? A miasmos. And then you got to have the jump freighter come in and scoop it all up, because you can't dock a Rorqual at a Athanor, and
Oh, pigs in a blanket, man. That reminds me of grade school. That and something called Bierox. Anybody ever eat that?
Wait, what? It had beer in it.
Bierox. I think it's German. It's cabbage and ground beef inside of a dough.
So no beer then.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's
also,
really good, yeah.
if Southern California people, it's all about tamales for Christmas.
Yeah. Actually, I had tamales last night at a Christmas party, and again, getting older, acid indigestion until 2 a.m. So I'm really tired having to stay up and sit up and watch TV or something.
You got to start taking the stomach pill every day. Join the AARP and take the stomach pill every day.
Right. It's time. It's time. I keep thinking I'm young. It's not true.
Bacon wrapped scallops. That sounds great.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I could go with that.
Bacon wrapped scallops with brown sugar, kind of melted on it. Oh my God, so good.
With brown sugar,
wrapped anything.
Earlier this morning, we were shopping for Christmas with my wife because we had to be there at the crack of dawn to beat all the other old people. And we found purple Brussels sprouts, which I had never seen before in my life. And I'm like, what the fuck? But I guess they're the new hotness. So
yeah.
Purple Brussels sprouts? What?
Anyway, so we had an agenda that we were going to talk about. Maybe we'll still hit news. We're going to go a little bit longer than usual. It's end of the show time now, but we're having a good time, so we're going to go a little longer. And it is Christmas, right? Christmas Eve. So we know that this was a really terrible time for anybody past UK time zone because it goes into their dinner time and all that. But we decided to do it anyway.
And Christmas Eve seems so much bigger over in Europe than it is. Yeah. Like Christmas Eve here, at least the way I grew up, was it's like you were still kind of getting ready for the next day. Maybe you did a Christmas Eve dinner with some family that could come over that weren't going to be able to come over the next day, because maybe they had kids and opening presents and all that kind of stuff. But
you know why that is. You know why that is.
It's a setup. What
it's like the 1 or 2 days a year where the British people get to eat good food, so they're very enthusiastic about it.
It's not wrong. Not wrong.
I thought you would defend your people.
No. I am perfectly on the side of truth on this. Our food the rest of the year sucks.
Well, wait a second. Now. The greatest British food invention is the bacon buddy, which is available all over England and is perhaps the most delicious food there is when you're hungry.
Yes, and it is the perfect reason why God exists, because it resurrects everybody on a Sunday after a night out drinking. But you're right. Everything else is rubbish.
Bacon buddy is basically like bread of some sort. I can't remember because I'm usually drunk. And then bacon on the inside. And then they put, I guess, a little butter. And it's the most awesome food in the world.
Mm.
Yeah, Killer Bee's dropping by. We'll bring him in.
All right, I'm heading out, everyone. Have a great Christmas.
Thanks,
Dunk.
You too.
Have
man.
a Christmas, Dunk. Bye.
Merry Christmas, Dunk.
Hey, Killer Bee. Thanks for coming by. We were just talking about Christmas food and stuff, but we're getting past that.
I see.
Oh, Mr. Christmas food discussion? Darn.
Yeah. What high points and low points for you, Killer Bee, this year?
High points and low points. Good question.
You're actually out somewhere, right? That's why your mic is a little muted.
Yeah, I'm at my family, so I'm connected from my phone.
Look at this guy. Dedication right there.
Yeah.
Dedication.
Never stops. All right. Well, stew on that if you want. And Elaine, I wanted to ask you, Elaine, you're a supporter of the show. Like, what made you decide to support the show? Like, what psychologically put you over?
Well, the first Patreon I ever subscribed to was Lockfox.
Yeah.
I'm a big industrialist and a market trader. I'm not a PvP guy. And I loved his show, and it got me started with Patreon. And I'd always respected your work. I think I joined your Discord before I became a Patreon. And I'm not an evil eye, but I like to support things. So I do you and Fuzzy Steve and maybe one or two other people. And I like to support the Meta Show. And sometimes it's in ISK and sometimes it's real life money.
Yeah, that's great.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, without this sort of support the shows get, a lot of it just would not happen at the end of the day. So all support we get is great.
Well, we get situations where where obviously we would do the show regardless of support, the additional support that people kind of bring in, but there's situations that occur, and there have been situations like this that have occurred where we've been trying to figure out how to redistribute the podcast and other things like that, where we've kind of run into situations where we go, oh, this is actually going to cost real money. This is actually going to, I'm going to have to actually put some, real life monetary effort into this. And, the support just helps significantly with, being able to say, we can do that. Let's just do it. Let's go for it. Let's keep it up,
Well, something happened this year that was unusual. We had somebody, first of all, Lange actually gave us some in-game ISK, which was a lot. We were really grateful for that. And then we also had somebody else who joined us and not joined us, but watched our show and appreciated it and just did one of those, I'm leaving Eve, here's all my wealth. The thing about this guy, though, is he was really wealthy. So he dumped a ton of ISK on Dirk and I, because he likes Dirk's work, he liked our work, and we're like, that's great. So what do we do with this? And part of the thing that we were thinking of, again, this is what I talked about earlier, is a donation that big, it just kind of put it into the market so that it could grow. But we're thinking about different things of possibly bringing the news into the game is more than it actually is now. Actually, Killer Bee was a part of these discussions too, because we're thinking big and dramatic. So we're like, let's put a Keepstar down. we'll broadcast the shows from the Keepstar in a role play fashion. And we could even do it up that way with art if we needed to and something like that. But basically intertwine the show more into EVE and try to bring the news closer to the people rather than having them seek us out and come to other avenues outside the game. And the reason for that is you don't want to feel like you're pulling people out of the game to get what they want when they're playing the game or in the game.
I also donated this to Opus. Opus, are you here?
I am.
Yeah, I know he hires writers and stuff for Eve Onion. And am I outing you? I don't mean to if I am.
You're not outing me.
Okay. But I know he hires writers for Eve Onion with ISK, so I wanted him to be able to continue that.
Oh, that's cool.
And that has went to that's been very generous of you. I've used it. Still using pieces of it to pay for our writers and for our artists. I very much appreciate what you gave to me, donated. It's went to good use, and I hope that you like what you see on the site. As a contributor.
I like the metagame. Because I'm not a PvP guy. I've never really gotten into it. I've been playing since 2005. I've always been a trader, so I like to support the people that are doing things other than PvP because that gets all the press.
That's nice, actually. That's pretty cool.
I like it. It's good.
Well, so let me know if you think that's a good idea. I think I put that out there before. It's still something I'm kicking around because in the reality, you can put a lot of effort and a lot of money towards something that is just a good idea to you and doesn't actually do much for the people that you're trying to help. And who are the people that we're trying to help? I don't know. Dirk, who's your audience when you do your show? Do you even think in those terms?
Yeah, I mean, yes, for open comms, it is people that kind of want to, be in that social sort of happy hour atmosphere. I mean, that's, however, I think what we do across kind of the board, across the various shows out there is we're trying to talk about EVE, right? Or things related to EVE players or whatever it is. Probably not necessarily the super hardcore veteran. I think it's more the people that, listeners tend to probably be people who don't necessarily have the same inputs from across the way. So, I mean, to some extent, it's new players, but not necessarily like new as in we're going to teach you how to play the game sort of a thing. It's more so that you understand that there's other things going on out there.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying on that because when I started playing EVE, one of the first podcasts I started listening to, and we're going back sort of 5 years ago now, one of the first podcasts I started listening to was Lost in EVE.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Jade Cougar and...
Infamy.
That's it. And I listened to them, and they'd been running for a couple of years already, like 2 or 3 years already by that point. And what I did was essentially download every single one of the podcasts, going back all the way from the beginning and listen to every single one of them from the beginning. Because listening to podcasts and reading the meta helped me understand a lot about what goes on in the game, so a lot more about the mechanics, a lot about who the people are. And when you're thinking about what drives EVE as a game, it's usually the meta that does it and who these people are. And without that, I don't think I would have done it. And certainly now, I still listen to a lot of podcasts. I drive into work and I drive home from work, and I'm always listening to podcasts because it just keeps me plugged into like lots of thoughts of opinions that are going on around.
Yeah, I remember back in 2008 when I first started playing, doing a lot of commuting into the city on the train every day and, listening to podcasts, which at a time when I still think of it as kind of the golden age of podcasting, and hearing about just various things that were going on out there in places I had no idea about. I mean, just nothing. And, it really led me to kind of understand just how big this game is. Even if it was somebody talking about nullsec, or if it was somebody who was more of an industrialist, or just somebody reporting on news, in a very kind of basic way, it opened things up more. I mean, now we've got a more expanded media, I think, in terms of written articles as well as blog. I mean, blogs were big back then too, and I think they're less so perhaps today. But the combination of these things, and then when of course you were able to add in video to it, it became a completely new world for being able to kind of communicate these things that people can kind of get a snapshot of.
Carneros, what do you think about news and EVE? Like, it's definitely changing, but where do you think we're going, and how can we actually improve it?
Well, I started like Tiberius with Lost in EVE. And actually, I didn't find it myself. One of my friends, John Smedley from the games industry.
Oh, that little friend.
He's the one who said, you should hear this. This is really cool. And then he was the one who said, you should join this corp because Jade Cougar's forming a corp. And he's forming an alliance. It's going to be called something Lost in EVE. It ended up being called LI3
Federation.
It ended up being LI3 Federation. And I somehow ended up as the XO, and then I ended up as the CEO when Jade had to step down, and then it merged with Gents, and that's the Bastion. But so I'm a podcast child in some ways, and so that's been woven into my nullsec experience since I left CCP and left EVE University and went into nullsec. Multiplex Gaming used to also run a really, really famous podcast called Podside. I think it's always, it might even be back online again or in some way, but only occasionally. But Multiplex Gaming has been in the Bastion and before that LI3 for like a long time. So there's always been people in the group who did podcasting. And podcasting and EVE Media is connected in my experience. A lot of podcasting is kibitzing and telling your stories in EVE, and then discussing the news of EVE, the news of the day. And then the news things, a lot of the news channels also make a podcast version. So it all blends together in my mind. And I love it. It allows me to have a richer experience in EVE, even when I can't log in. And I'm mostly logged in, to be honest. If I'm awake, I'm at least on Jabber and stuff, and I probably have one client open somewhere watching a Diplo channel, if nothing else.
Well, let me ask you guys in the audience too. How do we measure up compared to the golden age of podcasting? Like, are we missing it, or are we the same thing for another generation? Or, in other words, are they looking at the show saying, "Wow, this is good information, good personalities. I like listening to this stuff while I commute"? How do we measure up to the guys that we grew up listening to in 2009, 2010?
I'm a great personality. I don't know about this Metal guy.
As someone that's actually taken in EVE Media since the dawn of time almost of EVE Media, I think that I think it's different, but I think it's the same. I think it's what this generation or this age of EVE Online need. I mean, it's the amount of information we have at our fingertips is way more than what we had back in the day, right? So you would have only one reporter or one-sided report of what was happening, on a podcast way back even 6 or 7 years ago. Now you have multiple angles with multiple sources that were, either the cause of it or FCs or whatever. So I think we have I don't say it's better, but because we have more information, we have a more complete picture and have more to talk about. Whereas back, even like, say 10 years ago, it was all either you're basically talking about a news story that showed up on a news site, or you had one account. And so I think the quality has gotten better, but as internets have gotten faster, Twitch, you start having people that are kind of, we'll say amateur producers have come on the scene and do a high quality show. So I think as the internet's evolved, gotten older, people have grown up with the internet and got more tools that we have a better quality and we may have information, but for the time, those podcasts and news stories were the best thing that we had in the game. So I don't think we're better today. It's just we have more tools, and so it's more suave.
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, a perfect example of that. I've got to say, and this is something I'm quite proud of because I'm kind of associated to the organisation. Is what EVE-NT has managed to do with the Alliance tournament. Like every single time, they are just the production level is so good, and I'm so proud of the guys that do it, and the amount of effort and work they put into it. And I'm looking forward to see what they do next year.
Matterall, a big reason I Patreoned you to begin with was your longevity. You've been around for a long time, and that's important in EVE. I think it gives stability to the community.
Thank you, man. And you know, we saved one virtual life because this guy Holiak says Talking in Stations is literally the reason I didn't quit EVE. Like, that's a win. That's
so that's why we do it.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's anything necessarily better today other than kind of the different tools that can be brought to it, right? Especially on kind of the video side. Look, a podcast is a podcast, right? It's a recording, and that really hasn't changed all that much, except if you've got somebody who's really into editing and they like cut out a bunch of stuff and like tighten it up, right? Do that kind of after recording, work, right? Honestly, I would not want to go up against some of those personalities from back in the day that did some of those just strictly podcasts, but are no longer around. I think some of them were really good at what it was they were doing back then. Now, mind you, a lot of that stuff back then, like the information you were getting was a bit more dated. I want to say not everything was a weekly type of thing where everything they were talking about was current, but the way they did it, was really additive to just knowing kind of like some background behind some of the things.
Yeah,
or hearing the conversation among some hosts that really had great rapport with each other and things like that.
Yeah, that's what a Yorksman said as well. Helps make the galaxy bigger, what's going on and stuff. But I look back and I collect some of these old shows just to kind of listen to them, to calibrate our show, to find out, like, they seem to be a lot more conversational. It's just two guys talking for an hour about what's going on, but they would pick like 3 or 4 situations and talk about those situations, but they would know about the behind the scenes of those situations.
Yep. And now obviously we have the, in the past few years, right, we've had, Twitch come on and the live streaming of playing EVE, right, completely changing the ball game as far as that goes. Not that necessarily watching somebody mine is all that exciting, right? But, people doing things, people doing things, or ratting or whatever, right? But people doing things while talking about it live completely added a new dimension to things.
And it is more exciting and interesting than you think it is, than it sounds. It is.
Well, I think back because when we're doing the show, first of all, to do the show, it's a struggle. It's not a struggle. It's easy to do. It's a struggle to do it right, which doesn't always happen, actually. But you think back at like these other guys that were doing the podcasts and how much did they struggle and how natural was it for them to just do what they probably did anyway, which was talk in a corporation about what's going on out there. Because that's how a lot of people get their information. They don't listen to these shows. They just talk to each other.
I mean, I don't know how certainly the earlier podcasters did it and how all the earlier media people did it. Because even in the last couple of years, like when I was writing a lot and cultivating sources and like scouring all the research material I had, like just getting a fuller picture of everything that goes on within EVE is a nightmare. It is an absolute nightmare. There is so much going on at any one time. It is impossible to keep track of. And I never ever felt while I was doing it that I ever did justice to all the various groups that were involved in it, because there were so many little stories going on and I just wanted to tell them all. But you just can't, because you don't know about them. And I don't know how these groups did it. And we've got Reddit and we've got all these podcasts and we've got all these sites and everything else that do this.
Well,
and back then they didn't have that. And they still
but maybe that's the problem, is that everybody has read what you read on Reddit.
Maybe.
Yeah. Like maybe the problem is what we need to produce is even harder than what they needed to produce because they were exclusive and there wasn't a lot of outlets for it. So they needed to they had an easier time surprising the audience with new information than we do because we have to really dig to find the truth behind things and stuff like that. Oh, and for the record, FCON is not joining the Imperium. That was some fabrication. I had somebody say that was a doctored picture.
But it was on Reddit. It must be true.
Dunk, you have some thoughts?
Well, I would like to talk about Eve and not rhetorical theory of communication of the mass transmedia.
You totally said
rhetorical what?
All right, talk about Eve.
All right, so the glacial drifts, this is critical. The glacial drift skins are released for, I don't know, the ULI festival, right? I'm correct, huh?
Oh, yeah.
And so you can go do sites in which you shoot the red things and they drop, supposedly, right?
Right.
Or you can go to the New Eden store and buy the buckets of skins for, not Orm anymore, for Plex.
Wait, what?
I'm right on all this so far, yes?
Keep going.
Yes, true.
So now it appears the skins that don't drop with glacial stuff is the Forsox, that the rest of all the capitals, even down to the weird pirate capitals, those skins drop, martial skins drop, but no Forsox skins drop. So the only way you can get them is to buy the bundle with Plex. And then if I do the math right, it's over the equivalent of 5 billion ISK per Forsox skin.
Whoa.
Here we go.
What?
Wait, what? CCP, you done goofed.
Wait, explain like I'm five.
So I just want to check if I'm doing my math right. I don't want to bang my gavel without somebody else can confirm that my math is correct because my spreadsheet,
I'm logging in my G2 right now.
My understanding is that the the Force Auxiliaries are not part of the loot table. I think there is some sort of faction one out there that may drop or whatever. I know the other night when I was putting together stuff to give away on Open Comms, I was going to buy with Plex one of the packages of capital skins, right? And I said, let me go check the market and see what these are selling for out on the market because it was going to be about 5 billion ISK worth of Plex to be able to buy these from the Nest store. And then I went out and looked, and all of them were on the market except for the Force Auxiliary and the Apostle, and you could buy all of them combined for like 90 million ISK. That included, the Avatar, that included the Archon, that included the Aeon, right? For a total of 90 million ISK, except for the Force Auxiliary, where there was 2 buy orders up on the market for like 480 million. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Whoa, I'm not paying 5 billion ISK worth of Plex to buy this package. Something's wrong here. And it's because these things are dropping out there. They're basically cheap because of that, but the Nest store was just way off the mark.
There are literally no Apostle Glacial drift skins in.
Right. So it sounds like I'm correct in my math. So all I'm going to say, back to Eve, is where's the Logi love? Like, we are the most, our ships always get blown the fuck up. And can we have some nice skins for less than 5 bill a piece? It would be nice if they were added to the loot table.
Well, you're just going to blow up.
Yes, but at least you can blow up in style, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I always blow up in style. That's no doubt. But like the glacial drift skins look really, really awesome. And it would be nice that, we could get skins at a more reasonable price.
Well, at first when I went to go look, because I've got my settings down at low, you have to have your shader settings at least medium to be able to see that they're blue. Otherwise, they just look white. And I'm saying these look exactly like the Purity of the Throne skins. What the hell's going on here? And they're like, oh, no, you got to move your shader settings up to at least medium to be able to see, this nice blue with the kind of blue and white leopard towards the rear.
It's a nice skin, I have to say.
Well, Noisy Gamer will look into it. His computer mind. Noisy's done something very special as well, and he just finished about 5 minutes before the show. He has been doing some... Well, actually, Noisy, are you there? Do you want to tell us what you've been up to?
Yeah. when the Moon Goo redistribution happened, I saw that as an opportunity to try to do something in LowSec because the NPCs had been strip mining the belts that in the systems I hang out in. So instead of mining when we got all this, I started I started scanning moons, and I've now completed scanning all the LowSec moons in Metropolis, which is 2,300 or 2,200 something moons and 51 systems.
How's your sanity after doing all of that?
I've been I've been switching between doing the moon scanning and then doing Project Discovery and looking at the exoplanets there.
So if you two want to repay Noisy for his insane scanning of all the moons in Metropolis and want a map, send him his offers in his.
That's amazing. You called it. I didn't doubt it, and there it is.
Yeah, and see, because at eVegas, it's we had all this going on. We heard all the news and everything, and I told Matterall, you know what? I think I'm gonna do something. I didn't say role play, but I'm gonna go out and scan all the moons, all the LowSec moons in the Minmatar Republic. And at that time, I had counted 2,960. I miscounted by about 1,700.
Oh.
Yeah, so I thought I had made enough probes in order to get through everything. No, I'm still 500 short. But in talking about Eve, in January there's supposed to be a change to the way that modules load when you cloak. Right now, you have to wait until the module completes loading before you can cloak your ship. In January, as soon as you start the load, then you can cloak up and it'll finish the load, which would have really come in handy over the last couple months.
Yes,
you just want it easy, Noisy.
Most definitely.
This makes me happy as a explorer. A lot of time I spend doing exploring, I'm warping place to place, loading my probes. Being able to cloak after it loads is amazing.
All right, this is a becoming family hour on the show. So if you guys have kids you want to put in front of the camera, now is the time.
My daughter's.
I don't have any. I know Cardaris doesn't have any.
That he knows about.
That he knows about. Oh, you cad Canaris.
I'm gonna head on. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thanks,
Merry Christmas.
Cheers, buddy. Have a great one.
Celebrating Christmas, happy solstice, or happy holidays.
Oh, I like the solstice one. Drunk Canadian, welcome.
Hi.
How you doing, buddy?
Enjoying my Sunday.
That's right. It's again, it's probably dinner time for a lot of everybody past UK over there, so they couldn't make it. Would like
almost church time here.
Some of our people, yeah. For us, it's you're on the West Coast, right?
Yeah, East Coast.
Oh,
2 hours though. My wife goes early.
Oh, I forgot you're from the Toronto area.
Yes, yeah, same time zone.
Oh, that's right.
A little bit further north.
I got you. I love that. I like that town. I like Canadians in general. Just so you know, so it's out there.
Just so everybody knows.
Just so everybody knows, I like Canadians. They're like civilized Americans.
Ish.
Yeah. I heard it's all under the surface there, but who knows?
It really is. I always had this assumption that Canadians were very chilled out until I heard some stories about Canadians going completely mental on other Canadians.
Oh, they are, except the funniest thing is I was at a Halloween parade. It was in Toronto, and it was in Toronto, and there was a bunch of people in costume, and this angry elf is walking by smoking, and he's like, what did he say? I don't remember what he said, so it won't be as funny.
Piss off hosers?
He totally had like leotards and he had pointy ears and he was smoking. He's like, fucking hell, yay? Or something like that. It was like the friendliest angry elf I've ever seen in my life. And I was like,
was he angry or drunk?
He was angry. He was on the phone or something, and as he's walking by at a brisk pace. But he still sounded
on his way to his elf job. He probably was angry.
Totally right. I think Santa just laid him off or something. But he was like, he was polite, and it was just, I was like, yeah, I'm in Canada, because even the elves are angry but nice. Like they're not non-offensive angry. So
it's the only place where people can be angry but also super polite to you. It's weird.
Yeah. Angry but polite is an interesting combination. Well, all right, let's run through some quick news and wrap up the show. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
I mean, I'd
love at the top of the hour.
3 hours and let it be casual. I got to run though, but so we'll just wrap it up and then you guys can talk in Discord after the show. But we did have some notes. We didn't follow any of them, so I'll jump over there now. And
very unusual for us.
Well, in very important news, Moon Ore still way too big.
To carry inside of freighters, you mean, or
to carry anywhere? It's too big.
All right. Well, we have.
See, Matterall doesn't care because he's like space rich, so he doesn't care about the struggle. He doesn't care about the struggle.
I'm a space.
You're talking about just the raw ore, like pre.
That's right, Doug. I'm with you.
He has his minion. He has his minions to deal with the carrying of lesser
his
materials.
Go ahead, Carneros. I see you wanting to talk.
No, you guys.
Look, Matterall's in here talking about how many keep stars should he buy, and the rest of us, we're struggling. We're struggling with hauling Muno around, and he's like, 2 or 3 keep stars. I don't know.
Confession here. At the same time I'm doing this show, I'm running an incursion. I need ISK too. I'm not taking it out of my alliance. That would be bad form.
Well, we should pay people for showing up. No,
that reminds me. Is it about time for my annual bonus from you at some point?
We didn't get the Christmas turkey this year.
Yeah, I'm not wealthy in the game. I am like the holder of a trust fund kind of thing, and that's how that works. I don't really consider it mine. Okay, so CCP had a dev video. We'll talk about your bonus later, Tiberius.
Nice. Quick.
Yeah, all you guys. All the regulars. CCP, a dev video. They have a GIF competition. Okay. Faction War. They plug their Faction War operating bases. Forward operating bases. Every time I see FW, I get it wrong. And that is, I thought that was pretty cool. They had a little guy acting. He was play acting. I know people were didn't love it, but I thought it was pretty cool. And then the journal is the journal is being gotten rid of. Sorry, no, that's being updated. The journal's being updated. The place that you look for agents is being eliminated, and it's folding into the agency window, which is pretty cool.
Oh my god,
yeah,
the tears
that's so horrible. That is such a horrible thing.
What do you think?
The tears are amazing.
I mean, so this affects my blogging, okay? Because I've used the Agent Finder to write blog posts about where you can find stuff. With the Agent Finder, you can only get a maximum of 12 agents in your query, and sometimes there's 30 or there's 20, and so you're not going to find all the agents by using the stupid Agent Finder inside the agency.
Yeah. Well, that's bad for anybody who's doing planning. Like, where do I want to move my operating base to?
Yeah, let me find more than 12 results and let me close the map, and I'll be much better off with it. But right now, it just clutters the screen and doesn't give me what I need.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing is that with the API going away, I don't know how much longer Kriba's Eve agent site is going to be up. So if we lose that plus this, that's really bad.
What are you trying to do here?
Trying to get rid of an old code and kind of roll it into their new thing. I mean, it sounds like something that's fixable within their new agency setup, right? But this is obviously something where contact your local CSM.
It just sounds like they're trying to modernize. Like they're trying to get rid of an old system that's outdated and bring in a new system that has more bells and whistles.
I mean, like, the thing is, though, even one of the devs turned around and went, yeah, you can't close the map. No sort of, oh, we'll take a look at making the ability. It was just a, nope, map staying.
I don't know. I wouldn't go so far as to say that is the, be all and end all for that. Like there was a long time. There was a long period of time where, devs were basically saying no. There's no way, no chance in any way, shape, or form that we would have bookmarks in space, and we've got bookmarks in space. So never say never.
All right. So what's coming up in January? Is that what's coming up in January, or is that in the game already? That's coming up in January, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the changes coming in January. They're going to be enhancing the agency and removing things out of it, probably to try to improve performance, but I hear that it really doesn't improve performance so much.
All right, we're joined by Lilac E. I think works for Opus and does the, what's that called? The boop, boop.
Eve
I'm
Onion.
failing. Thank you. I'm failing on the air. Eve Onion. Right.
You did get it right.
Okay, good. Eventually. Weekly update by Reload. It's a new video, I guess, that he's doing. It's pretty cool. He sits there and with a really nice production value. It tells you, from his point of view, some of the news that he's run into. So look out for that. Pod and Planet announced their winners. Didn't you win last year, Tiberius, or you were runner-up?
Year before. I got third place year before last. Yeah, so this is the second year that I haven't entered, but yeah. This is a great competition. Like if you're a bit of a writer person and you like writing a bit of fiction, it's a great competition. They gave away 55 billion-ish worth in prizes this year, which is huge. Especially considering that they're like up until recently, the biggest backers have always been like EveBet and things like that.
Yeah, it's in the age without casinos. That's great.
Yeah, and it's one of the big competitions that have carried on running. And you know what? The work, the fiction that's in it is amazing. It is so good. And one of the judges that reoccurs quite often is CCP Falcon. And he is essentially the lore master of EVE at the moment. He's the guy that does all the in-game news and does all the big events. So if he's voting on it and saying it's pretty good, the lore is pretty much spot on.
Nice.
What's
but
the
it's
name
great.
of this competition?
What was that?
Right. And so,
what was the name of this competition?
Pod and Planet. That's cool. It's been running for years now, and there's been many stories. You can go to, if you Google Pod and Planet, you'll go straight to the site, and you'll be able to go back and look through all the historical submissions on the competition, all the fiction that's been written by EVE players, and it's a lot of it is really good.
I will point out that the grand prize winner of this year's competition isn't Brave player. Javik wrote a good story. So
good boy.
Go read his fiction. It's pretty good.
Awesome. All right, and the last thing we have is earlier in the year at EVE Vegas, we did the Continuum of War, and we had some interviews. I interviewed people for hours before I prepared this presentation that went on at EVE Vegas. And so look out for that on YouTube, Continuum of War, EVE Vegas. If you haven't seen it already, it's a roundup of the last 5 years, pretty much, of wars. And I want to release over this break some of the source interviews so you can hear it in the words of the FCs themselves. And some good stuff in there, but I just have to edit out stuff that they want to keep private. And so that's all we have today. Do you want to? Anyone have any last thoughts before we go?
I might have some EVE meets in it.
There's really only two: one in Antarctica and one in Scotland, I think.
Oh yes, of course, because Eve Glasgow have their post-Christmas meet on a regular basis. Then there's Eve Antarctica, which is still great. So Eve Glasgow, 28th of December at the Hillhead Book Club, where they have been for the last sort of few years. Make sure you check that one out. Eve Antarctica, if you're one of the 3,000 people that live down there, go check that out. But then we get into January, and of course it's like Aussie zone now, because it's essentially their summer. And we got the Adelaide player meetup on the 6th of January at the Cooper's Ale House, which looks like a fantastic venue as well. The Charlotte, North Carolina monthly Eve meet in the US. That's at the VBGB Beer Hall and Garden Restaurant. That's on the 20th of Jan. And then Melbourne also has a meetup at the GG Easy. I love that name. Esports bar on the 20th of Jan too. So if you're in that part of the world, go check them out.
All right, thanks for that. Well, that wraps up the show this week. I'd love to stay, but we have to roll right into Christmas Eve activities with the family like everybody else does. And we will see you next week when we have the Eve 2017 wrap-up show. We talk about what happened during the last year, go over some events, see some old clips, that kind of thing. I want to thank all you guys for stopping into our little Christmas party. I want to show my sweater one more time because
it's awesome.
3D cats, I think, jumping off this thing. It was a gag gift at a party that my son won. And thank you guys for donating and being a part of the Discord and for helping the show with your support, financial or in-game ISK. And I want to thank everybody that showed up on our shows in the past year, and especially the panel here that comes every week. Carneros, Tiberius, Dirk, and the list goes on. Noisy Gamers joined us, and you guys are awesome. And you guys are Talking in Stations.
We're very holiday centric here, aren't we? I mean, there's, what about all those people out there that don't celebrate Christmas that are wondering, well, why can't I listen to a show of other people who don't celebrate that day?
Yeah, I like the solstice thing.
But that was pretty cool.
Also remember, for the Russians, Christmas is January 6th, the Epiphany. So to all our Russian bros and broettes,
sorry we're having it early
on the
6th. Yeah, happy Epiphany, definitely.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you guys.
And if you're in Japan, enjoy your Christmas KFC.
And thank you, people who have been watching this show week in, week out. We appreciate the live audience. It helps us get feedback immediately. And thank you to podcast listeners that listen, while they're driving and stuff like that. Thanks to everybody involved with Talking in Stations. We've had a great year. Okay, that's it for this week. We will see you next week on Talking in Stations.
Happy Christmas. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.